Hello and welcome back to Bringing Becca. Today we are in front of my TBR shelf in order to unveil the 2022 physical TBR. I set this TBR quite high every year. I set it around 52 because that's the number of weeks in the year, so I theoretically have a book for every week of the year. I don't really intend to read every single book from this TBR though. It is really a pile of priorities. These are books that are already on my shelves that I really want to put some attention to. They're things that I'm really interested in getting to soon. I know it sounds like an awful lot of books, but this year I decided to really dramatically change how I was doing things because in previous years I have rolled over all of the unread books from that and just replaced the read books. So this year I wiped it. I completely started over. And I decided to make groupings, so kind of logical groups and themes that made sense to me. So that when I'm reaching for these things, maybe I will want to pick up other things that are on that theme. So that may help me get to more books from this shelf quickly. So I can also use that for doing projects. If I wanted to do a project on a certain type of book, I can do that. And there's at least one project I already have in mind that's on here. It seems like a lot, but ultimately I did end up having to not only cut books from these groupings, but I could cut entire groupings that I had in mind off of the shelf altogether. So this is the very pared down version, and I think it ended up at 53 books. So let's get on to the actual books themselves. I think I'm going to have to keep it just to pretty much the theme, the title, and the author. Otherwise, we're going to be here all day. So we'll keep this as brief as possible. My first grouping is Dark Academia. We have The Betrayals by Bridget Collins, and Vita Nostra by Marina and Sergei Dyachenko. Next, we have Gothic. There is a large group of women authors who are contemporary writers that are writing Gothic fiction, and I want to do a project this year, so there will be a big cluster here as well as on my library TBR that will be Gothic ladies. So I've got Bellman and Black by Diane Setterfield, The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry, Things in Jars by Jess Kidd, and The Silent Companions by Laura Purcell. The next theme is kind of religion and power from a clergy-focused perspective. So this first one is Byzantium by Stephen R. Lougheed. I believe this is a monk looking for the Book of Kells. A Canticle for Leibowitz by Walter M. Miller Jr. Then we have The Warden by Anthony Trollope. I think this one is a bit satirical. And The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. This one is about clergy and the building of a cathedral. Next, we have Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas, and Three Musketeers alike in fantasy, so Traitor's Blade by Sebastian de Castell. Next shelf down, we have Anthropomorphic Animals, starting with Ka, Dar Oakley in the Ruin of Ymir by John Crowley. The Dark Portal by Robin Jarvis, first book of the Deptford Mice series. Redwall by Brian Jux. Time Cat by Lloyd Alexander. Tail Chaser Song by Tad Williams. And The Book of the Dun Cow by Walter Wangerin Jr. Next category we have is not your typical monsters, so these are all unusual in some way. This first one is World War Z by Max Brooks. It is a zombie novel told in mixed media. Then we have Sunshine by Robin McKinley. This is vampires, but I think it's dark and creepy as implied by the cover, but also has some sweet cozy elements to it. I know there's baking involved. Next we have Sharp Teeth by Toby Barlow. This is a novel in verse that is all about a dog catcher who falls in love with a werewolf. And speaking of werewolves, we've got The Devourers by Indradas, I believe. This is kind of historical India telling of werewolves. And then we have kind of a subcategory to this one where we've got orcs. So we start this with Grunts by Mary Gentle. The Grey Bastards by Jonathan French. These are an orc biker gang on literal hogs. And The Unspoken Name by A.K. Larkwood. Next, we have bookish books. These range from just being sweet bookstore type books to characters coming to life and everything between. So we start with Midnight at the Bright Ideas Bookstore by Matthew Sullivan, The Air Affair by Jasper Ford, the first in the Tuesday Next series, The Mysterious Flame of Queen Loana by Umberto Eco. I never hear anyone talk about this one, but this is all about a man who remembers nothing of his actual life, but he can remember everything from every book he's ever read. First Person by Richard Flanagan. I think this one involves a con man who is ghostwriting a memoir, and that starts having an impact on his actual life. Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan. I absolutely loved Sourdough, so this one I want to get to very soon. The Bookman by Lavi Tidar. The Bar Harbor Retirement Home for Famous Writers and Their Muses by Terry Lynn DeFino. And The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. Next we have Shakespeare related. So we've got Miranda in Milan by Catherine Duckett. And Queens of Innis Lear by Tessa Grattan. Then, in honor of Mark's challenge from Book Time with Elvis, where he's focusing on reading some things from Africa, I picked a cluster of books set in Africa. So we've got The Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. This one is a classic that I struggled with on audio, so I want to try it again in print. Cry, The Beloved Country by Alan Payton. This is a reread. I absolutely loved this when I read it in my young adulthood, and I would love to come back to it and see what I can find there. The Number One Ladies Detective Agency by Alexander McCall Smith, and Binti, The Night Masquerade by Nnedi Okorafor. So next, we have a nonfiction shelf, and we are starting with a group of books about where humanity is going in the future. This first with a look at the past and where we are now, where we need to go from there. This is The Sixth Extinction by Elizabeth Colbert. Evolving Ourselves, Redesigning the Future of Humanity One Gene at a Time by Juan Enriquez and Steve Gullins. And The Next Species, The Future of Evolution in the Aftermath of Man by Michael Tennyson. Then we have food writing, Save Me the Plums by Ruth Reichel. And My Life in France by Julia Child. Next we have medical nonfiction. First we have The Spirit Catches You and You Fall Down by Anne Fadiman. The Center Cannot Hold, My Journey Through Madness by Ellen R. Sachs. Not Fade Away, A Memoir of Senses Lost and Found by Rebecca Alexander. Next, we have what I'm calling Unreasonable Americans. I have Idiot America by Charles P. Pierce. I believe this one is more ranty. And on the more academic end, we have The Age of American Unreason by Susan Jacoby. I've read Jacoby's essays and bought a couple of her books based on that. And now seems like the right time to read these, even though they're a few years old. Both of these seem incredibly relevant for some reason. Our next grouping is Unusual Perspectives in Islam. So this is Letters to a Young Muslim by Omar Sahif Gobash. And as far as I understand it, this is writing letters to young Muslims about how to kind of be a progressive Muslim and translate the religion into something that works in modern culture. And 9 Parts of Desire by Geraldine Brooks. And this is perspectives on life of women in Muslim countries. And the final category is challenging Christianity. So I grew up with a major fundamentalist Christian background, and so this kind of work that comes from a different perspective than I had, I am really interested in. This is The Idolatry of God, Breaking Our Addiction to Certainty and Satisfaction by Peter Rollins. And Peter is well known for knowing himself as the Christian atheist. He has created a movement toward expressing doubt and welcoming doubt within the faith, and that they're not mutually exclusive. So he's a very interesting philosopher and thinker to me. And we have Why I Am Not a Christian by Bertrand Russell, who is a famous mathematician and skeptic. And the last book on the shelf, we have Biblical Literalism, A Gentile Heresy by John Shelby Spong. Now, you may or may not have picked up on this, but these books all appeared in my Mooks and Gripes bucket list tag. So they were also the top vote getters. So these are the books you all wanted me to read this year. We have The Pillars of Earth by Ken Follett, Biblical Literalism, A Gentile Heresy, My Life in France by Julia Child, and The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. And these are going to be a priority to get to this year since you all wanted to see me read them. We're going to try and get to them. So that is all for my topics and TBR. And other than these books, what did you see on this shelf that you think I should get to soon? What are your favorites or books you didn't like even? Let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching.